Voters will decide 6 state questions seeking to change the state constitution this November. The issues covered by the questions haven't gotten much attention so far. ONR's Cathy Tatom begins our coverage by examining 4 of the questions. They cover topics ranging from restructuring the Department of Human Services to lowering the cap on annual property tax increases.
State Question 758 seeks to lower the cap on annual property tax increases from 5% to 3%. State Representative David Dank says the lower cap would only affect homes and agricultural land.
It does not include the public utilities. It does not include commercial property.
University of Tulsa law professor and former state treasurer Robert Butkin says lowering the cap could cost some taxpayers more while reducing property taxes for others.
The people who might be seeing tax cuts or paying less taxes than they would otherwise pay are people in more affluent suburbs where homes are actually appreciating at rates greater than 3%. The people who might see tax increases are people who are in less affluent neighborhoods.
Butkin says counties may raise property tax rates if caps on the fair cash value of homes in ag land is lowered.
Our property tax system is kind of a function of 2 different things, the fair cash value and the tax rate. And anytime you artificially limit increases in one dimension of that formula to pay our bills, to fund our public schools, to pay our firefighters and police officers, we sometimes have to increase the tax rate to make up for that lost money.
Dank strongly disagrees.
What this does is this just restrains the growth of taxes. It does not cut them. It doesn't cost anybody a dime, no schools, no counties, no local entities.
Gene Perry is an analyst with the nonpartisan nonprofit Oklahoma Policy Institute. It has evaluated the potential impact of each state question.
There are fixed expenses that counties and school districts have to pay for, particularly bonds and some legal judgments. And so if you can't tax properties at their full value, you're going to have to increase the rate on everybody to get the funds to pay those fixed expenses.
State Question 766 is another tax measure. It seeks to exempt intangible personal property from ad valorem taxes. Intangibles include things as wide-ranging as trade names and secrets, patents and licenses, to custom computer software, land leases, and mineral interests. The measure is backed by the state chamber. Its president, Fred Morgan, says his organization is spending $1 million to encourage voters to approve the measure.
Voters will be asked to amend the Oklahoma Constitution to say that all intangible personal property will be exempt from taxation.
There was a Supreme Court decision after Southwestern Bell, now AT&T, sued to try to exempt more of their intangible property from taxation, and the Supreme Court said no, you couldn't do that. And currently only centrally assessed companies are paying any intangible property tax. And centrally assessed means the state is assessing their property tax rather than individual counties. And the companies that applies to are utilities, railroads, public service companies, so these large companies that have infrastructure all over the state, basically.
Perry says the state will lose millions if voters pass SQ 766.
And it would cost about $50 million estimated in the first year. So that's primarily taking money away from schools.
Morgan agrees the state would lose some tax revenue it now collects, but only from entities like railroads and utilities if SQ 766 passes. He adds, if it doesn't, it's possible counties could begin raising revenue by assessing individuals for intangible personal property taxes. State Question 764 would extend a safety net already in the Constitution. It ensures certain water and sewage project bonds get paid back, even if municipalities default on their obligations.
Because that safeguard exists, even though it hasn't occurred so far, it would give the creditors and it would give bond raters more assurances, and so the bond rating could be kept high, and it would maybe decrease the cost of bonds because they would know that if it went wrong, there was this fallback plan.
House Speaker Chris Steele supports passage. He says the safety net helps small and medium-sized communities make improvements to water treatment systems.
In the next 50 years, we're going to be looking at approximately $80 billion worth of infrastructure needs for our water system to meet and to keep up with our growing population. And so as a way to begin to address that issue, the recommendation was to expand or enhance this current program so that municipalities can begin to address their needs.
State Question 765 is designed to take the Department of Human Services out of the state constitution and change how it's governed. State Representative Jason Nelson says reorganization has bipartisan support in the legislature, but wording on the ballot may not clearly explain the measure's intent.
The state question, when you first start reading it, it says something about abolishing DHS. Obviously, that's not what we're going to do. I mean, at the day after the election, if it passes, you're not going to wake up and find DHS is gone.
The Oklahoma Policy Institute isn't so sure.
It's up in the air what would happen if this passed. Obviously, the legislature has no intention of abolishing DHS, but there might be a case where there's a court case over it, or they might have to go to special session and come up with the law to make sure that the department stays.
Right now, DHS is run by a 9-member commission and a director.
The commission has sole constitutional discretion over the hiring of the director, the salary schedules for employees, the requirements to be an employee, the training of the employee, the policies of the agency, how the agency is administered. The legislature and the governor really don't have much to say about that at all.
If State Question 765 passes, the commission would be dissolved. The governor would appoint the director with the approval of the Senate. And additionally, 4 commissions would be created to run different aspects of DHS.
The difference is that they will be completely controlled and appointed by the governor. Historically, the Constitution was set up in 1938 with the Department of Human Services to get rid of political patronage and to try to make the commission to oversee the services as non-political as it could be.
Former DHS Commissioner Dr. Richard Devon strongly opposes State Question 765.
It is strictly a power play to put the position of hiring the director of DHS into the hands of the governor.
Butkin says passage would allow the governor and legislature to reorganize an agency plagued with problems.
This is a really important agency, and if there's one area of state government where we need to foster more accountability, efficiency, and streamlining, it's at DHS.
Devon says budget cuts by the legislature created many of the agency's problems.
The legislature over the last 3 years cut the budget of DHS by 125 million state dollars, reduced the employees by 1,000. So they created a problem of overworked employees, underfunded agency.
All 6 state questions will be on the ballot November 6th.